and dry this fall. Darn Tough socks, Rocky and Danner waterproof boots, Keen utility workwear, Carhartt, Wolverine, and Wrangler apparel, Carhartt gloves and accessories. Both Boots has it all.
Did you know Capone's Pizza now has a salad bar from 11 till 3 every day of the week? That's right, 11 till 3 daily. Enjoy a fresh salad made how you like it, and it's included in Capone's daily lunch special.
You'll only get sound out of that one.
Yeah. Can you turn it down a little?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Miami-style pizza. Or order delivery at Capone's Pizza and Bar, Market Center in Boone.
WSOC TV, Severe Weather Center 9, High Country Weather. Looking for a small chance for a shower out there early in the day today.
Say good morning to Facebook there, Jake.
Hey.
A little chance of rain returning through the day today. A couple spotty showers again for tomorrow, but then as we head
So
our way
my
through the
cousin's
weekend,
wife
a better
got
chance
bit
of
by a
heavy
rabid
rain and
bat
flooding
inside their
concerns and
home.
gusty winds.
What?
Yeah, she just sat down, apparently was chilling in the air duct, apparently flew, like just stuck on her back, and she felt something, and then she like turned around to see what it was.
Didn't turn into a zombie, did she?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't talked to them in a while, so who knows, man. Could be vampire zombies all over the place.
I like it. You can call in and talk about your problem.
So we go last name or no last name.
That's what I was looking
Yeah, give it. So, I mean, it's up to you.
First name's good.
Okay.
It's
10
about the
seconds.
mess. It's not about me.
Right, but I mean, if we want to find you on
Here,
Facebook.
stand by.
I
4,
can give you a
3,
website.
2.
On WATA.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Recovery Talk. My name is Jim Quigley, your host, and Recovery Talk is brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is the newest auto shop here in town, and actually, they are currently running a contest. You can go to the Facebook page of Freedom Auto Tech and sign up, and if you get in by the end of the month, you could possibly win a coupon for $500 of credit at the shop. So, if you need some car work done, here's an opportunity to maybe get a $500 credit. If you are listening to the show or watching the show and you want to be part of the show, you can give us a call at 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. I forgot to give out the number for the auto shop. That is the Freedom Auto Tech is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. Everybody in the listening and watching of the show, you're in our prayers. We are all bracing for this storm. So y'all be careful out there. And even though that people may be downplaying, you never know. So just be prepared. There's nothing wrong with taking some precautions, and our prayers are out there for everybody. Stuff can be replaced, but protect the lives. We don't want to see anybody losing their lives. So everybody, this morning, I have a friend with me. His name is Jake, and Jake, this is the cool thing about being in a recovery community, which is a lot of the premise of the show, is that you meet other people in recovery. Jake and I have a mutual friend, and I called that mutual friend up and said, hey, look, I got some openings in my show. Love to fill a spot. And my friend said, hey, you know what? I have the perfect person. And that brings us Jake. Good morning, Jake.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on the show with us.
Absolute pleasure to be here today.
And I'm excited because just like our listening and watching audience, I know little teeny bits and pieces through our mutual friend, but I don't really know much of your story except for the fact that we're on the end of almost 32 years of recovery.
Yeah, this month will be 32 years.
And you want to talk about someone that has hope and encouragement for people out there that are struggling, the millions of people that are struggling. Here is somebody that has almost 32 years of recovery, and so we're looking forward to hearing your story, Jake.
Yep. Well, pretty much garden variety addict alcoholic, I don't really take a lot of credit for my recovery. I really give it up to the rooms of recovery. It's connecting with other people. That's what does it, My story started in a small town in West Virginia where I was raised up. And there, it's pretty much like everybody else. I got involved with drugs and alcohol. There was drinking in the family when I was growing up. You know, it was pretty commonplace. You know, I remember even going back to when I was a child, laying in bed. My mother came in and she gave me some paregoric. That used to be an opiate drug years ago that you could give children to help their stomach ache. But it was an opiate, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember I took that drug and I was like, Pretty soon I was walking around, oh, Mom, my stomach, you know, you got to help me, you know, so give me some more.
You had chronic stomach pain
That's
after that.
chronic stomach pain after that. So, you know, move on a few years, and then I got introduced to beer, and, you know, I started drinking beer. The first time I had beer, you know, drank enough to have the alcohol set in on me, I realized it was a love story. You know, it was like an aha moment. I had finally found what I was looking for, you know. Move on from there, you know, it was just a matter of time before the drinking led on to other things for me. I got involved in other substances and things, and, you know, sort of like drink first and then try whatever, you know, sort of open to anything. And so as a result, you know, that took me where it all takes all of us. You know, it just took me to that incomprehensible demoralization. That's kind of the way it goes. I came to in a motel room in Washington, D.C. is where I was.
Hey, help us with the timeline. How old were you about now?
Yeah, I was drinking for about 20 years.
Okay.
20 years. You know, I was thinking the other day, I said, gosh, you know, of all the things I'd like to do, I'd like to have those 20 years back, you know. Because, you know, when you go under the influence of alcohol and drugs and you're under there for 20 years, it really, it almost puts a Tupperware lid on your life. You know, it stunts you, your maturity, it stunts you, it stunts your growth, it stunts your job performance, it stunts your family life, you know. And so, you know, going through those things, I'd gone through divorce and different things. All of this stuff was really based on drinking. You know, it was drinking or what it led me to, and it just ruined my life. You know, it just did.
They often, people often want to. That's a common thing. They're like, you know what, I'm 30 or I'm 40, but actually in maturity level, I'm 15 or 16 when my addiction started, and people are like, well, what happens? Is it like your brain just stopped? Well, I mean, if you think about it. If you how do people mature? They deal with life, right? And they go through trials, and as people do that, that's how people get wisdom and they mature and things like that. Well, people with addiction problems, we just check out all that stuff, right? It's like, okay, life, I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to make my own reality. You know, I'm good. Yeah. And the problem with that is this is one of the insidious things about addiction. People don't realize it's like, why would people go back to it after they get some sobriety? Well, as I'm disengaging from life is continuing on. And so if it was bad enough to make me want to escape it in some way, when I sober up and now have to face it, now it's like how many years worse, because it's just continued to go on and on and on. Yeah. And it's almost like, holy crap, it's almost, running back to try to put my head out. I had a friend who used to say, at Quigley, I need to put my head out, and I kind of understand. Those of us that have been that kind of know what that is. Just kind of get away from reality. But yeah, I also like to tell people, and this is just an opinion of mine, but you do get older, and things are happening, and in hindsight, you almost have a way of, you could catch up a little bit faster in maturity if you get some really good sobriety and really good recovery. You almost kind of, in my opinion, you can catch up a little bit in that whole framework of being immature. If you really are serious and humble and ready to start listening to somebody guide you through recovery. But that's been my experience at this point. But sorry.
That's okay. They talking about those things. The trust issues were big for us coming in.
Yeah.
Trust was always a problem, and my early sponsors would tell me, said, Jake, you don't have to trust anybody in here. You have to trust everybody. He said, you ever try that? I said, I never did. the we of recovery. You know, it allows for that, you know, and you're hearing from everybody, you know, one ultimate authority, a loving God expressed through our group. And that's what I needed. I needed that love of self back. I had lost myself, you know. I needed love again. I didn't know really how to get it back, you know. And I found out 2 or more gathered in His name, you know, that would heal me, you know. So recovery to me, you know, it's sort of like God for Dummies, you know. It's like the 12 steps, you know. Try to find my way back to a loving God rather than a spirit of hate that I was living under. Yeah, they say it's a spiritual malady. So, you know, a spiritual malady, you know, they've said, how's your faith life? You know, I didn't really spend much time thinking about those things, but yet the reality of my life and addiction proved it so, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say I kind of like a lot of times get into conversations about the history of addiction with people, and you know it's obvious that the single thing that's had the largest impact on recovery is 12-step. You know, it started with Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that has had the single largest effect on recovery in the world. And one of the things I believe that they get so right is pointing to the fact that this is a spiritual problem. You know, at the root of it, this is really a spiritual problem, and I really appreciate that because I think if you look at the history before, you know, how were they trying to fix people, and it's pretty scary at some of the stuff they did, you know, to people. As far as trying to get them sober and get them clean and whatnot, and they were treating a medical problem. And I tell people all the times, you know, it got to the point where I'm sure it was bewildering doctors. It's like, hey, I got this guy in that was on the street, and we've put him in the hospital, and now we've gotten him clean and sober over the last few months, and he's like a great guy. He's like talking, and can you imagine? Then they say, hey man, this guy's he's gonna go and take the world on now. Yeah. And they'll walk out in 24 hours, the guy's drunk again, and they're probably going, "This is crazy, man." Yeah. So,
you know, that's a good point. You know, having been to over 10,000 meetings and listened to hundreds of thousands of personal shares from people, you know, the thing that I can tell you for sure is that recovery is amazing, and recovery is miraculous. But again, it goes back to that spiritual foundation. Yeah. It's really where we find out who we are again. So I would say, all in all, in my life, it's been the greatest adventure of my life to rediscover the person that I actually am and to become, and this was a killer, comfortable in my own skin. Wow. You know, the anxiety level under addiction is nuts, you know. Especially now with opioids, you know, those things that just rattle your bones, you know, trying to come off of that stuff. But now, you know, I have that peace, joy, and serenity, and, you know, I want to hold on to it, and so I listen to what the people say, and the people say you need to connect. They say people that go to meetings on a regular basis make it, you know, and that's the first thing I always see and hear, people moving away, you know, not good.
That's the other thing. Community and spiritual problem have been, you know, fundamentally, I think, very, very good things that have been introduced into the recovery world through the 12-step fellowships and whatnot. You know, I just read a book. You were just saying being okay in my own skin. I just read a book that was pretty inspiring to me, and it was a novel. And the guy was trying to help another guy out, and he goes, you know what? You got to be okay with who God says you are. Because the guy was making an image of himself, and he was having a lot of a hard time with life. It wasn't an addiction book, but it was just that line impacted me. We're coming up on a quick break. We're going to be back here with Jake in just a minute, so stay with us, and we'll talk to you in a minute.
Did you know there's a fantastic thrift store on the 105 bypass in Oakland? It's operated by Freedom Farm Ministries. All proceeds go directly back into the ministry to help fund men's housing, food, and quality of life while they recover.
4 minutes. Okay, we got a long break. If you need to use the restroom, man, there's one right there, or your tools hang.
So are you in recovery? Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And how long have you been in recovery?
This time, so I have 2 long stints in recovery. One time was 6 years, relapsed for 5, and now I'm over 7.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
So, a little bit different. I'm not a 12-step fellowship guy. Not that it just wasn't, where. And I've actually gone like.
So I'm a Jesus Christ kind of guy.
Yeah. I was like Mr. AA. I'm from South Florida.
Yeah, well,
so
then there you go.
Palm Beach County.
I know right where you are.
Right, so I was like
many times.
all the clubhouses. I lived next to the Oasis Club, so
Okay,
that's where I was.
Crossroads, all those places.
Oh yeah, down in Delray. Yeah. So I ran that circuit for a while, and went to Bible college to become a minister. And after graduating Bible college, I relapsed.
We should talk about Revelation.
Yeah.
We should talk about it.
Sure.
Because that's a big thing. Take it to the truth.
Yeah. But my time in recovery this time, I tried to go back to that, and just something was missing. And I found recovery, and probably a lot of it, you could always. It's obviously my relationship with God through Christ, but probably a lot of my growth has been that I'm just in almost 24/7 service now because it's my full-time job.
Well, and that's the truth with me being in this ministry for like 16 years. So that's what I've been doing. So, when you take your talents and you put it back into giving to recovery, you stay sober.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always tell that to people. I was, going to those deadbeat end of the road recovery centers, and I see these poor souls in there that have been there for 20 years, and I want what they have, because they're so strong. You can feel it just walking up to them.
Sure.
See it.
I tell my guys that come through our program all the time, I'm like, look, if it's true that you've been purchased, your life has been purchased, okay? You owe your life, right? So you need to get to work. He's got a job for you. If you try to get out of that work, you're not going to stay sober, my friend, because...
Don't turn your head away from the plow, baby. Once you get your hand on the plow, keep stroking.
Oh, you got... so we're mutual friends with Jamie then. Jamie Henson.
Yeah, I know Jamie.
Yeah, he says he's excited to see you. So this is a live feed. So there's Jamie saying, Jake! So,
We got about a minute.
about a minute?
Mm-hmm.
To serve in the Army National Guard.
National Guard for me was a perfect fit. I've had a lot of military in my family. It's a big part of what my family does.
That's another thing we could talk about too. Everybody has talents, and recovery is sort of our cross, is the cross we bear.
Yeah.
And so using your talents and sharing your cross will get you to a life beyond your wildest dreams. Now it will.
Yep.
I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
But not many people understand it or will do it.
Yeah, I hear you.
20 away.
Hey, Gary, what's going on, buddy? Gary's down in South Florida. He's in recovery down there.
10 seconds.
Log on to nationalguard.com. Sponsored by the North Carolina
5,
Army National
4,
Guard. Aired by
3,
the North Carolina
2.
Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Oh, there goes. Welcome back to Recovery Talk. Saw you got a little shot of Dave Ramsey there. He's a smart guy. If you need some financial advice, you should listen to him. But right now, it's our show. So this is Recovery Talk. We're back with you. Recovery Talk is brought to you by our sponsor, Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is ready to service all your car needs. And right now, they're currently having a contest. If you are in the Boone area, Watauga County area, you can go on the Facebook page and enter the contest. If you're watching Facebook Live, pass it around to your friends, like the page, because Todd is putting it up right now. And if you just need to call him and schedule an appointment, that's the number to call is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. Hey, if you want to call in and say something to Jake, ask him a question or anything like that along the show, please feel free to. 828-262-1567. That's the number to call into the show. That's 828-262-1567. All right, Jake. We could probably get into the weeds if we keep, because it's fun talking recovery. People that are enjoying recovery, and again, thanks for coming in. But where were we? We were chasing rabbits, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, we were. Coming into the rooms and everything. My first group was a small group in West Virginia.
Hey, before you say that, you said that you were in a hotel room. That's where it was. So kind of what happened? You're like 20 years of drinking and all that, and then you were in a hotel room in Virginia,
right.
West Virginia?
In Washington, D.C.
Okay,
in
Washington.
Yeah. And
Had you become a lobbyist?
no,
Okay.
close.
Okay.
And so anyway, through a really strange set of circumstances, the gentleman that offered me my first beer, okay, was the guy that came in and 12-stepped me. And he came in that day, and he 12-stepped me that day. And it worked, it worked. And so I left there, and I went back to West Virginia, and he said, run, don't walk to the nearest recovery meeting. So I joined a noon group in West Virginia, very unlikely group. My early sponsors, I said, I got to fit in with it. I said, we got pain huffers in here. We got prostitutes in here. We got meth addicts in here. How about me? He says, you're going to fit in like a glove. And so I kind of did, But, I think the stigma of it, I don't know, people have this stigma where they don't, they shy away from helping themselves. We've got to get back home. This is not working. A life of addiction doesn't work.
Right. So
I connected with the group, kept going, got better, and things just progressively got better. I told my sponsor, I said, like Bill, I said, Bill had that magic moment. The lights came on in the hospital, and the angels were singing, and the wind was blowing. I said, is that going to happen to me? He said, no, Jake, that's not going to happen. Oh, shuck. He said, you're the educational variety.
Yeah.
So, it was like what we were talking about break. Revelation, God's revelation through sobriety and conscious contact with God. So he reveals a path for us, and it is a way that we didn't know anything about. That beyond your wildest dreams, that's a pretty easy thing to understand, because I don't know where I'm going. I certainly didn't know what I needed. I knew what I wanted, and my sponsor told me, Jake, you get any more of that, you're not even going to be here.
Yeah.
So we need what we need. So started going that way.
That you mentioned something. The diversity of all the different parts of the group, and it's pretty extreme. People often, they people that don't struggle with addiction, they always want to know what's going through the mind of an addict. I get into those conversations a lot, and one of the best ways I describe to people, kind of like the reality and the silliness at the same time of the mind of an addict, and you start finding these are like some of these things I discovered in sobriety. I was like, wow, I was so wrong about this. And one of the one of the scenarios I paint for people is like, imagine going into a church, okay? An addict goes into a church and looks at everybody and says, none of these people have any problems whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm the only one in this room.
Yeah.
And you're laughing because you know that there's no reality to that scenario in the mind of it at all. There's no reality to that at all. I mean, me being in ministry, I know that people are in there. They may be dressed well and nice, but there's stuff going on, my friend. That people are dealing with some pretty bad situations. And you hang around long enough, some of it really comes out in the open. You see some people that have some bad problems, but I'm not here wanting to get into other people's problems, but it's just that reality that we don't recognize. Well, we got a caller, so hello, welcome to Recovery Talk. You are talking to Jake. Can you hear him, Jake?
Hey, yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Hey, for those of you who can't hear us on Facebook, the caller has asked a question about, Jake's been around a while, and the caller relates to him age group wise, and he's wanting to know the change that has happened as far as the availability of the recovery community over the last years. So Yeah, you have a great perspective on that because obviously you're coming up on 32 years.
Yeah, and I travel a lot in recovery circles. And so, I go to strange cities all the time, and I pull in at the motel hotel and get on the phone or get on the internet and usually find a meeting within 2 blocks of where I am.
Wow.
No matter where, no matter where, I can usually walk 2 blocks to an AA meeting. So help is right around the corner.
At the beginning, was it, you've been traveling for about 16 years doing this.
I have.
So has that intensified as far as that availability, or have you seen that grow, or has it kind of been like that?
Oh, I think it's gotten better. I
Yeah.
think it's gotten much better. Unfortunately, I see addiction growing as well. There's a lot of, the rehabs that I would go to, especially up through West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. You pull into the rehab and there may be 25 or 35, and you go back next year and there may be 75 or 100. There are pockets, up in Providence, Rhode Island. There are pockets of addiction that are just really dramatic, Yeah. And so, that's the importance of having recovery and sort of sharing the gospel of recovery, if you will. It's important to let people know that, there's a way out here.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
a way out.
Hey, caller, thanks for your call.
Thank you.
So we're coming up on 2 minutes to the break, but you had a friend 12-step you called. Did you call out, or did someone find out that you were in there?
I did. I called out, and through a really strange set of situations, he didn't live there, but he was there. And so,
Crazy.
It was like an act of
First
God.
guy gave you a beer in recovery, comes in 12 steps.
He did.
So you start going, you go back home, and we kind of got off another rabbit trail about that mentality of joining a group and going, where do I fit in here? And I think that human beings in general all struggle with this at some point in their life. I don't think that's something that is only people with addiction issues. It's just that we deal with that. We deal with that in the way we do. And like we were talking earlier, it kind of takes you out of dealing with reality by putting yourself in a false reality through putting your head out.
They always talk about where people that normally wouldn't mix.
Yeah.
And certainly, when you go into your first AA meeting, I mean, these people may as well be from Mars. I'm like, what am I doing here? How did this happen to me?
I thought women were from Mars.
Yeah.
So, and that to be able to go into a group to where you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to mix in here. At the center of that, in my opinion, takes humility. A humble person isn't going into a room going like, I don't belong here. I'm better than these people. All that. When you got to that humility, people ask me all the time, how is it that we can help more people? I was like, man, if you could figure out some way to make people humble, I don't know.
2 words: incomprehensible demoralization.
Yeah, that's what made me humble.
That's what made me humble.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're on a hard break. We'll be back in just a minute with Jake. Stay with us.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
AM 1450 and 96.5 FM. WATA, boom.
How long have you been doing this show?
CN News. I'm Michael Lafer. It's the Hot approaching for on the coast and should make landfall by Friday morning.
4 or 5 months.
It's been a while, yeah.
James Morrow is a meteorologist.
Maybe
was it
April?
April or March?
We should talk about using your talents, just like you have, and just like I do, and just like they should, because, like I say, we got a pandemic situation here,
Buddy.
and everybody needs to step on up, and that's only going to improve your life. That's all it's going to do.
We're on the wrong side of this thing.
We'll
Take you there.
our final stretch will be like 12 minutes.
Okay.
We'll have a final stretch, and we'll really get into that. I think.
I would like to plug the website too.
Yeah.
So-
We're at that point to where I think, women are from Venus.
Man,
Sorry, Todd. Thanks for correcting us.
Men are from Mars.
This is show 17, so 17 weeks. We've done 17 weeks.
Wow.
A lot of women I know would say men are from Uranus.
Yeah.
My wife sometimes tells me.
Yeah.
Preparations ahead of Florence's arrival. The Wrightsville Beach Police Chief Dan House
That's going to be no joke, that storm.
Yeah. What area you live in?
Oh, we're okay. We're here.
Okay.
You know, but I'm just saying, over there, the storm surge, the rain, it's like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
If they see a 9-foot storm surge, oh man, people gonna die. You know, it's gonna be bad.
My family from down south are all calling, freaking out for it. I'm like,
Oh, hell,
do you know where I am geographically?
They're going like that. Are you okay?
Yeah. My dad's like, it doesn't matter. It's even worse in the mountains. I'm like,
I got messages from extended family on Facebook asking if I'm in the path of the storm. And, I mean, I haven't talked. I think the last time I talked to this guy was like 3. So, I mean, conversation didn't exist. It was just whatever a 3-year-old's going to say. He's like, are you in the path of the storm? And I was like, I think I'm listening, but I don't know who that is. So I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, do you know this? Oh, he's like, yeah, that's my cousin. He's like, you don't have to respond. I talked to him yesterday. You're fine. All right. He's like, are you fine? We'll find out.
my dad's the kind of guy, like, if you don't get excited like he is, he needs you to get excited. He needs you to get worried, man, you know? So he just starts making stuff up to get you freaked out, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed the radio station was taking steps. I saw 2 sandbags out front.
Oh, actually, those are there all year.
Yeah, those are there periodically.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if that's going to hold them back or not. You know.
I don't know how many.
This
more
river
sandbags
behind the
there
station,
This flood.
that thing, I think
it
so.
goes over, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm same creek over on Meadowview Drive. That's where my apartment is. So, Bavarian Village, that all flooded in October.
Yeah, that's a bad flood area.
Yeah. So I think, well, tomorrow's Friday. I think after work tomorrow, I'm just gonna take my car to one of the parking decks.
Yeah, get it out of the way.
Yeah. Like it's a wind tunnel, but if I park in the right spot, it should be okay.
I hope we
I'd much rather have some scratches and stuff than a flooded car. Yeah.
What is the latest path? Are we? I heard
From
the
what I
turn
heard,
is going to hit us now. Pretty good.
It's gonna.
If it comes straight, it'll hit us.
It's gonna go south a little bit once it hits the coast. Supposedly, go around toward Myrtle Beach, kind of kick up toward the tip end of the western end of North Carolina. So, I mean, one way or another, we're getting a lot of rain. I think it's just the wind that's gonna come with it. Let me see if I can find
There you
that.
go.
I have a friend. He's a very big. Oh, thanks. He's a very big supporter of our program, and he and his wife are 2 weeks from moving into their newly remodeled condo on Topsail Island.
Oh no.
They are across the street from the beach.
Well,
I called him yesterday. I'm like, "How you doing?" He goes, "I'm pretty aggravated."
So this is the path.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it just kind of.
Yeah.
It's gonna get us. But
Do a little weird juke there.
we're gonna be getting rain for weeks. So I think we might have to invest in some more sandbags.
Yeah, because this thing's slow too. That's the one big problem, right? It's just gonna sit and dump, move really slow.
they got it from the rain in the back, from the surge in the front, and the rain from the storm.
All the locals are talking about the flood of 1940, the Watauga flood of 1940. Have you heard about that?
No.
It was a Category 2 hurricane came through South Carolina and destroyed Watauga County.
Watch yourself, my man.
Oh, we'll see.
Hey.
What's up?
Good to see you.
Hey,
The cooperative extension spots, I recorded 3 of them. They're on that computer.
Okay.
So, and they've not been labeled. You got to crop them, but they all did them in one take. 2 were 60 seconds. 1 is about maybe 30.
All right. 5 seconds.
It's WATA, AM 1450 and
Here we go.
96.5 FM.
Welcome back to Recovery Talk. We're here with Jake, but before we get back into the story, don't forget about our sponsor, Freedom Auto Tech. They're running a contest right now. You can win $500 of work towards your car. Their number is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. You know, if you don't win the 500, you still get discounts. They're giving out 10, 25% discounts. So it's worth your time. Go and sign up, especially if you got some work you need done in your car. Anyway, Jake, we're back. So we're kind of like in you're in the rooms, you're getting recovery, and obviously, have you been able to consistently just you've consistently started there and just continually grown from?
I have, yeah. I've never had the necessary to have another drink.
Okay.
You know, I wondered why is that, you know, but I didn't know recovery groups then. I'd never gone to a support group for that. I'd always tried to take it on my own.
Right.
And, you know, we've seen a lot of solo acts try and fail, you know.
Sure.
It's the we of recovery is what it is.
Absolutely.
But, you know, it's like we were talking about before, you know, I think, you know, long-term recovery, you know, what can you do to ensure long-term recovery? And I think it is, you know, since you've received your life back through the rooms of recovery, and man, I owe AA big, you know, I could never repay what they've done for me.
About how long would you say before you really started to feel that you received your, because, you know, a lot of people anybody listening and watching, they're like, you know, sometimes they don't realize, you know, the time it takes sometimes.
Well, I mean, you know, you're drinking a bottle of vodka a night, you know, that's not so good, you know.
Right.
So in 30 days, I had a new life. In 60, I had another new life. You know, by 1 year, the desire to drink and use had gone away.
Okay.
And that was through revelation. You know, all of a sudden, I just woke up to the fact that I said, my God, it's been 3 weeks. I hadn't even thought about a drug or a drink. You know how it is. That's the way the promises come true, through revelation. All of a sudden, suddenly you realize God has done for you something that you couldn't do. You never could. And so
it would be accurate to say that you kind of struggle with the thought and the desire for close to a year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like everybody, you know, everybody struggles. You
Well,
know.
I know a couple people, and I can't stand them. They said it went from them immediately.
Just like that.
I work with one guy, and I'm like, shut up.
Yeah. Like Bill W.
I don't want to hear about it, okay? Just stay away from me and your special experience, you know? But anyway.
Like I said, I think most of us are the educational variety, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I said, it's been the most wonderful adventure of my life. You know, but the thing is, you know, over the last 15 years or so, I've been traveling around working at recovery centers and this sort of thing. And when I go in and I see these poor souls that have been locked up with all these crazy people like me for 20 years in a recovery center, you know, they always seem to have something I want. You know, I told my sponsor after I'd been in recovery for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that, and I said, you know, I really love what recovery's done for me. I'd like to get some more. What can I do to get more? He said, that's easy. You can give more away. And I said, well, how am I going to do that? And he said, I thought you were a music man. I said, well, yeah, I guess I am. He said, you written any music lately? I said, no. Addiction told me I couldn't do that anymore. Like it always tells you, you can't do anything. You're not worth it. You know,
right.
That's the message we get from the dark side. You know, it's a lie by the father of some old equipment, and begin working on sort of a God-given talent. I never really been trained musically. I felt like it was sort of a gift to me, you know. And we all have special gifts. Everybody in recovery has you have a special gift, and you know, you are using your special gift to help those in recovery. And I know you're making a huge impact in this community and in the lives of those men, because I've met those men, you know, so I know what you're doing for those guys. And, you know, it's not us, it is the grace of God that works through us.
Absolutely.
You know? So anyway, I started doing that, and you know, the first time I went out, I said, well, this is crazy, that, you know, this will probably last a week or two. And so now 16 years later, here I am, you know. And I am amazed. You know, that's the thing I could tell you. I am amazed. And, you know, it is that thing, you know, back in recovery, it was, give it to me. You know, I'm going to take it from you. You know, it's that take mentality. But, you know, as you come into recovery, you understand giving is how we receive. Giving.
Right.
So as you turn 180 degrees from a taker into a giver,
right,
then you receive the gift, you know, which is a good slathering of God's grace on your life, and things change and you change, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You and I share a specific faith. You know, we're Christians. We believe that we have been made right with God through Christ, and but we also we both struggle with recovery, and we found some help through people that aren't necessarily Christians. You know, they're getting, and it's funny that the framework for continuing recovery, like what we're talking about, like getting involved in service and using your gifts and all that stuff, you know, they had that all written down way back in the Bible. It says, we've all been given a gift. This is like specifically from a biblical doctrine. We've all been given a gift, right? And we're to use that gift for the kingdom, right? And the kingdom being the church. And he actually, the analogies it uses, it's like, hey, look, some people are hands, and some people are mouths, and some people are eyes, and some people are feet. Yeah. Find out which part you are, and you're part of the body, right? You're part of the body, and of course, Christ is the head in Christian doctrine. But the same is true in recovery as it is. Like I could talk to a person that doesn't share my faith, right? I could say, hey, look, you need to do this in order to stay sober, right? You need to do this in order to find, sobriety and for fulfilled life and things like that. For me, I can say, look, like I was saying on the break, I've been purchased, and I'm to do this. And if I think that I can just make this an option, then do you really think I'm not going to, find chastisement, from my loving Father that says, hey, look, I got a job for you. You need to get involved in this.
Well, a father disciplines those he loves.
That's right.
So, that was probably a lot of problem for a lot of us. We didn't get disciplined, and so we were just sort of off on our own doing what we wanted.
Absolutely. And
without control, without discipline, and we went bad. We went the wrong way.
Hey, before we get to the next break, I know that we want to get your website on here. So if we could just say it on air, you have a whole ministry that you have a website with. A lot of your music is on it. So why don't you tell the audience with us, and Todd will actually put it on the live feed also here. So what's the website?
The website is iworldband.org. It's I like the letter I, world like the world we live in, band like the Rolling Stones, .org, iworldband.org.
iWorldBand, and this is where you can find your music and your ministry and a lot of what you do.
Yeah, it's just basically, understandings over the years, but you know how it is in the rooms, it's sort of like when they put the topic up on the table, it's like everybody's a diamond cutter. Everybody cuts a facet in the diamond, and at the end of the meeting, you've got something, So what we've tried to do is try to bring the message through music. It's a different way to help people approach problems or understandings in recovery. And it's very simple to use. There's no logon, no password, no dues, no fees. We don't sell anything. Nobody's going to recontact you. We're not going to stuff your email box. We're not going to bother you. It's a one way, that's like the early sponsor. How do I do it? Give more away. So, it's a giveaway. That's what it is. And it's all there and available and very easy to give anywhere in the world. You can give those away. If you have children, family members suffering from addiction, you can look through our site, find these songs, look at them up for the problem or solution that they offer. The genre of the music's available, and you just simply give it away. So that's the plug, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Todd's got it up for those of you watching on Facebook. It's there. Jake's website, iworldband.org. So you've been running and recording music for how long would you say? Did you say 15 or 16 years?
I started writing music when I was about 15 years old, and I've been writing and producing music for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time. I'm still not getting any better. What's wrong?
Yeah. So would you say that this had become like pretty much your full-time occupation, or were you doing this as a full-time hobby? Or
no, I'd say the word to use is compelled.
Compelled.
I am compelled to do this work. I can't explain it. I don't understand it. A lot of people said, Jake, nobody else is doing this. And you know why? Because they don't want to. There's no money in it. So what the heck are you doing? I don't really know what I'm doing, but I can tell you this. Since I have begun this, my life has changed in so many wonderful ways. I mean, it's incredible what I've been through and everything. And, I can't take credit for it. I still have to give it back to the family in recovery and the grace of Christ, that directs my life today. Yeah.
Compelled. I like that. Compelled.
Yeah.
Can't think of doing anything else, probably.
I really can't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's changed a lot. I'm getting older. It's more difficult for me. I used to I used to probably do maybe 150 dates a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of dates, you know. When you have to drive, set up, play, perform, tear it down, pack it up, put it in the van, go back, motel, hotel, write, produce. It's kind of all-consuming. But now
Were you pretty much a solo act too?
Well, I'm a solo act, but I got a lot of fine people that work with me.
Okay.
You know, it's one man's desire to give away the greatest gift he's ever received. You know, it's pretty much kind of how that works.
So we got another break, but when we come back, I want to hear a little bit more about this whole ministry, and we'll finish the show up with that. Come back with us.
Have you ever been stuck in a
I
tight
don't know what's
spot?
going on with that.
Don't worry. Hampton's Body Shop and
Seems like
Record
everything's
Service
starting
can
up
help.
by itself.
Hampton's Body Shop and Record
Possessed.
Service has a brand new 60-ton rotator record.
So this will be the final stretch.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
We'll have to get together.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Don't
I'd
worry
love
about
to.
that either. Hampton's Body Shop and Record Service.
Are you good friends with Gary Smith? You know Gary?
I do know.
Yeah.
I know everybody up here. If I
Okay.
don't, I know them by face. I might know them by first name. I might not know their last name.
Gary and I go to church together,
Yeah,
and he watches the show sometimes in
What church do you go to?
Alliance Bible Fellowship.
That's a great church.
And yeah, we love it. We love it there. But yeah, Gary watches, and I was trying to get him to come on the show one day because a lot of guys that have come through the farm know Gary, and he's kind of I guess would be like you, kind of like one of those old soul in the rooms. You know?
Less than a minute.
Less than a minute.
Like 50 seconds.
Hosts for the Carolina and the Fall Festival.
Yeah, it's really, you know,
North Carolina.
I can't imagine my life
Carolina
without
with almost
recovery
30
today.
world-class acts, and we have great
It's kind
food,
of
so
a
we
world
hope we're going to see
I
you
don't
there.
feel
The
comfortable,
third annual
really,
Carolina
as
and the Fall
comfortable
Festival,
with
Friday,
normal,
September 22nd and
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I try to
September
get along with
23rd in
everything,
downtown
but
Wilkesboro.
it's
This
different.
year featuring Ricky Skaggs
But
and Kentucky
it's
Thunder,
faith, too,
Drew Holcomb and the
Christian
Neighbors,
fellowship.
Terry
Oh,
Baldwin's
yeah.
Dukes
Yeah.
of
My prayer
Hazzard, the
group, my
Conscious
home group,
Quartet, the legendary Kruger Brothers, and
Harvest
so
House.
many more.
Is that where you go?
Other events,
Okay, do you know
including
Jerry
the
Daly?
Banjo
Yeah.
Championship,
Yeah, I
food
love
truck
Japan
competition,
Ministries.
The guy that I was just saying that had the house on Topsail Island, that's his brother. His brother is a big Freedom Farm supporter.
Oh, okay.
10
Mark.
seconds, guys.
And buy tickets at 1305 Collegiate Drive in
You're going
Wilkesboro.
4,
The Carolina
3,
and the Fall Music and
2.
Food Festival, September 22nd and 23rd.
We're back with Recovery Talk. You know, this show is trying to bring hope and help for the hurting. That's kind of like our mantra. And the show is brought to you through the sponsorship of Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is the newest auto shop here in town, and they're giving they have a contest right now, and they're giving away a grand prize of $500 worth of work to your vehicle. And the number to call to get in contact with them is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And you know what? If you don't win the grand prize, there's lots of other prizes that are given out, smaller prizes, discounts, 10, 15, 25%. Just go on there and check them out. And also, you know, I don't say this much, but, you know, the Freedom Auto Tech is a for-profit business that basically the profits flow into the non-for-profit recovery program of Freedom Farm Ministries. So basically, it's a business that runs in order to help financially support men in recovery. So if you want to be a part of that, need your car fixed, it's kind of you're helping out guys in recovery and getting your car fixed and getting a good job at the same time. So give them a call if you need your car looked at. And before we end the show, if you want to call in and say hi to Jake, 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. So back to your story, Jake. So you know, you found recovery through miraculous. I'm sure that's a fun story to hear. It took about a good year before you were relieved from the desire, and you started to live a life of recovery, and then at some point asked your sponsor, I want more. That's when he turned your focus onto giving more, serving more, and this started this ministry. iWorldBand.org is the website. It's on our Facebook live feed, but that's iWorldBand.org. And this is a music ministry.
Yes.
You were explaining to me when we were talking over the phone that you have a lot of personal songs. I'm looking forward to listening to the CD you gave me, but a lot of personal songs that are just topics of moments in your recovery.
Yes.
Name some of the titles of some of the songs you were telling me.
Well, like I was saying, that, like for instance, a blues song we have called "Lying to Myself."
Lying to myself.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, you know, a little bit, you know, it's just like, yeah, absolutely.
So it's sort of a low rider kind of sound.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of that sort of thing. You know, we have a new song we posted called "Blame Game," which talks about blaming other people. You know, you can spend your whole life there, you know. But hey, we got to get moving, but we lost time in addiction. We need to step up to today and move forward, you know.
It's one of the hardest things. I'm sure you've experienced people you love to death relapse, and you're sitting there and you want to give them time to process what just happened, and you're there to be with them, and you're like, brother, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
And then they just start listing out all the people that made them do what they did, and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, it hurts even harder because it's just like, man, you're going down the wrong road here, bud.
Yeah, you are.
You got to stop.
Yeah.
You got to stop.
You know, you're talking about like biblical references, you know, it's like a dog returning to its vomit.
Yeah.
How much worse is it? 7 times as bad. You know, I think when I came in, I said, I couldn't get any worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I assure you, because going to meetings and seeing what happens to people who don't go to meetings and don't pay attention and go back out, it's horrible.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing short of horrible.
And actually, you know, I see it today as almost being, you know, the death rate of addiction is just going up and up. You know, went up 8,000 between 2016 and 17. So we're at 72,000 people in 17 died from overdose. And, you know, I see it because I work in the industry. I see it all the time. It's like they relapse and they call their family and they give them, they know the blaming to tell them in order to get the sympathy. Mm-hmm. And then the family, like, they get all off. They start trying to fix this thing that they say is the problem, and they realize it's not what the problem is.
Yeah, I'm the problem.
They're the problem, you know?
You know,
trust me.
At the same time, you know, we are the solution.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, who knows how to talk to somebody who's got addiction problems? We do.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us have a special gift and a special ability.
Right.
And like I said, when I go out and see these people, the people that are there working with those people, those are the people that have something I want. And so I would challenge our recovery community to step up to help this pandemic situation we have sweeping the world today of addiction. And how can you do that? You can do that by taking your gift, you know, which you'll discover what it is as you become sober. You will see your gift.
Right, sure.
And then use your gift to help others, you know, sharing the cross that we have, the cross of addiction with us. You know, it's the wildest thing, because through the karmatic process of recovery, we turn all that tragedy to treasure, and we can actually share and make a difference in somebody's life. It's incredible, you know.
It absolutely is, and and you're so right. That's also I'm always examining, you know, the world of recovery, and you know, I'm obviously very opinionated about things, and this is also, I think, in my opinion, part of the problem with recovery today is that you got all these big insurance accepting places, and people are like, you know what, just put them over there to get help. And a lot of times people that are in there aren't necessarily people that they've studied addiction, mm-hmm. right? They have a degree that says they know something about it, but they've never really lived it. Does that make sense? And then a lot of times, you know, you see people, I'm not saying that those places can't work, but a lot of times it's like this ugly, messy problem, just put them over there, insurance will pay for it, and hopefully it'll fix them, you know, and then I don't want to deal with it. They don't realize it's just really creating more problems, because you've seen it in recovery communities. I don't know if you go to the posh places, the $1,000 a day places, but they just become like who can provide the best amenities, you know, in order to attract the most customers, you know. So you got people going over there and they're getting, you know, horse therapy, or they go and ride horses, you know, like this is going to help your addiction, or go out on the boat or something, you know. It's like, this is boat therapy, or anyway.
Yeah, a lot of it though is, you know, it's like your old ideas, letting go of old ideas. You know, until I could surrender my alcohol and drug problem, I couldn't even get a foothold.
Yeah, sure.
And then once I got a foothold and worked through the steps, then I had to start surrendering other things. You know, the big book talks about, you know, not yet, not now. I'm not willing to do that yet. But the thing is, until we surrender all, that's the only way to really receive all. And of course, nobody does that because nobody's perfect.
Right.
But, you know, we need to continue to walk in that way, surrendering our way for God's way.
Right.
You know, and it's not easy, you know, surrendering these things. But that's the way to the truth that will set you free. Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that word indeed, because for someone in recovery, really when we begin, it is indeed. You know, my sponsor told me, you know, don't go to Sluggo's Bar and Grill. You always get the heck beat out of you there. You know, so I learned that. But, you know, it's the final frontier. It's up here. You know, it's in our mind. You know, we have to change these old ideas.
Yeah, and again, that magic word for me, humility. When you got your brother, your sponsor, your mentor, whatever, you know, that says, hey, look, I think it's an area where you need to give up. Having that humility, take that criticism, say, you're right.
Something to be
do
desired.
Yeah.
You know, humility is something to be desired.
But, buddy, I'm telling you, yeah, the magic thing, like you said, we learned it. You know, we're such hard-headed mules. You know, people in addiction. I mean, you can't tell us anything.
I say donkey-headed mule.
Yeah.
That's usually what I call
Yeah,
myself. Yeah.
I mean, you could have 1,000 people tell you this is what's going to happen, and it's like you don't believe them until.
Not to me.
Oh, not to me. That's right. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be the one in a million that it doesn't happen to, and then what happens? It happens, and that's when you're finally humble. You know, you almost lose your life for something. Jake, man, we only got 2 minutes left of the show, but man, it's been great meeting you. You're doing God's work, my friend. You're living what you're saying other people need to do. I mean, there is, like you said, there is no joke. This problem is getting worse. Okay, how much it's grown over just the last 10 years is mind-boggling. People don't realize that, you know, the leading cause of death for people under 50 now is drugs and alcohol. You know,
and the other thing is the work that you do, the work that I do. Everybody says, "Oh, you know, you're such a great guy because you." That is not what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know.
I am doing this because love works, baby. That's why I'm doing it. Because
people say that all the time. They're like, I don't know how you do what you do. I'm like, well, look, I'm not a martyr, my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do anything else. Right? This is helping me out just as much as anybody.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, I may look like I'm not so bad today, but I was probably one of the worst. Right? You could ask my family. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. Mike Moorhead. You know Mike Moorhead?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. You know, we're best friends.
No.
Yeah, we grew up together.
Whoa.
Yeah. He just said my favorite sponsor ever. I didn't know that. Okay, small world. Okay, little into the show, small world.
Yeah.
Mikey, my brother. I kicked him out of Freedom Farm. I'll tell you that story after we're done. But look, go check out Jake's website. Here it is again, iworldband.org. That's iworldband.org. He's got a lot of music out there. It's free for you. Give it away. He's giving it away. And if you want to get in touch with Jake, you can through the website or our Facebook page. Look, it was a great show.
Thank you.
See you guys. See you next week. You're Mike's sponsor?
Mike, you know, I know everybody's first.
Mike, he lives in Greensboro now, drives for...
Oh, the big truck?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, are you a sponsor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known him since I was 6.
Okay, cool.
His dad's been my dentist my whole life.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
Yeah. Hand me that phone, will you?
Here's your headphones, too.
Oh, thanks.
Mike's a great guy.
I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking. He
Magic
called me last
Mike?
night, Magic Mike.
Yeah.
He called